You're listening to the Sisters in Loss podcast, a faith-based podcast that spotlights Black women who replace silence with storytelling around pregnancy and infant loss and infertility. Black women experience miscarriage and stillbirth 4 to 5 times more likely than white women, according to the NIH and CDC. Whether you've experienced a miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, are trying to conceive, or have an infertility diagnosis, you will learn about resources and strategies to heal, gain clarity, peace, hope, and find an empowering path forward after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee, and you will hear me interview sisters in loss who have healed from such a painful and traumatic experience by sharing their testimonies and stories to inspire and help others turn their pain into their purpose. Now let's get started. Well, thank you, Mikell, for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, well, I just turned 28 on the 8th. Of course, I released a book talking about my pregnancy loss. I also do freelance photography on the side. I do graphic design, and I write.
Awesome. And we will definitely talk more about your book later on. But I would love for you to just take us back on your journey to motherhood and share with us your loss story.
Okay. So it probably differs from a lot of other people because it wasn't actually planned, but I wasn't shocked when I found out, if that makes sense. You know, I remember my cousin, I remember being at work and days leading up to when I was supposed to be having my cycle. I was showing, I guess, symptoms, but I didn't really pick up on it. I had a lot of gas. My cousin was telling me oh my God, you're birthing so much. And I was getting off work at 6 o'clock, in bed by 7:30, sleeping the whole night. And then just waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm eating ice cream sandwiches and fruit snacks. And I still didn't think anything of it. But my cousin kept telling me, she's like, oh, you're definitely pregnant. You need to take a pregnancy test. And I did. And I was really, like I said, not too shocked, but I was shocked at the same time. And I remember the next day I took another test, and my cousin was like, I don't know why you're taking another test. It's the same as what it was yesterday. So, and then it seems like when I took it, then I started feeling everything. I didn't notice any symptoms at first, but after I took the test, I felt everything. And so I went along my little journey. Just I cut off certain things, and I thought everything was going well until actually Saturday. It was actually Super Bowl Sunday is when I started bleeding. But the day before that, I went out with friends and we ate seafood. I'm from the South, so crawfish and shrimp and stuff is really big here. So we were just having a night out. And the next day, like I said, it was Super Bowl Sunday. I was craving pizza, and I ordered all the food. And whenever I went to the bathroom, I didn't have any blood in my panties, but it's whenever I wiped, it would be just a little bit. And I was kind of alarmed, and my friends was just oh, that's normal. Don't be afraid or anything. And I wasn't in any pain. So I definitely didn't think, that it was anything bad happening. But then the next day I woke up getting ready for work, and it was more. And I still wasn't in pain, but my friend was like, no, we need to go in, get you checked out, because you shouldn't be bleeding that much. And I ended up going to the hospital, and that was when I actually got my first ultrasound. And I still wasn't in any pain. And they just sent me home with told me that I had a threatened miscarriage or whatever. And they put me on pelvic rest. They told me I needed to follow up with a doctor within 2 days or whatever to just make sure my HCG levels were still good. But the next day I couldn't get through to anybody. My doctor wouldn't see me. I hadn't even made it to my first doctor's appointment yet, and the doctor wouldn't see me. And I'm calling around the whole Golden Triangle, trying to figure out where I can go. And it's no one cared. I'm telling them I'm bleeding, I'm pregnant. The doctor's telling me I need to be seen. And they're just all oh, you have to make an appointment. So I went to bed, of course, that night feeling really, really hopeless. And the next morning around 3 is when everything happened. I'm sorry.
No, you do not have to apologize. Go ahead and take a moment, you know, breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, and let that cry out, and let's work our way through it. I think that is sharing your story is a part of your healing, and I'm happy that you chose us to be vulnerable with you. So, once you feel ready and compelled to start talking again, but I just want you to cry it out. I just want you to get it out because it's good for you. And I want you to, come back to the story ready to share your experience, because a lot of women have been in your shoes and know the pain that they can feel and hear in your tears right
now. This is my first time like actually physically speaking about this, so I guess that's why it's kind of like I'm kind of getting choked up, but I think I'm okay.
Understood.
Yeah. And I figured it would be like this, but I thought I just like had it all together. So yeah, about 3 o'clock, I woke up and I was just like in pain, like, and I was bleeding so much, like I could barely get out of the bed. I didn't know what was going on. Um, and I just remember like holding on to the walls, going to the bathroom because I could, like I said, I was just in so much pain, and I pulled my shorts down actually, and then like blood was just dripping down my legs, and I'm like, oh my god, like this can't be normal. And I was just sitting on the toilet, and my stomach was just like constantly like contracting. And then it's like every time I had like a contraction, like I passed a blood clot. So I remember like standing up because I was sitting on the toilet for such a long time because I was in so much pain. And then I was like, okay, I got to get up. I got to call the ambulance, like, or something or someone, because I don't know what's going on. And I just remember standing up, and then like I just felt this come out of me. And then I looked in the toilet, of course, and it's the baby just like sitting in the toilet. So I'm like, oh my God. And I scooped it out, put it on the paper towel, and then I called 911 because I couldn't drive or anything. Like I was just like in so much pain and so much shock. And they're just like, okay, well, we're going to send someone. Just make sure you open the door so that they can come in. And I ended up at the hospital. I had the same ultrasound tech that did my first one was the same one that came in and just like confirmed everything. And as soon as I saw her, I just started crying, because I was just like, she just told me everything was fine. Like they sent me home, they told me everything was fine. And now she's here telling me like, there's no heartbeat anymore. Like, so, kind of like a blur, but I remember also like being in the hospital and going to the bathroom because they wanted me to do urine samples, and like I guess while I was in there, like the placenta came out, which they confirmed that later on, and they kept telling me like, oh, we got to keep you here to make sure you're gonna pass everything naturally. And I was praying. I was like, I do not want to have a DNC because I've never had anesthesia before. I've never had any type of surgery. I'm like very scared of anesthesia, so I was just like, God, please just let everything just pass naturally. And they told me by the time I left, like that I did, like, looks like everything was going to pass naturally. And they gave me information so I could follow up, of course, with the doctor. I remember the chaplain coming in the room, and he's like telling me, oh, I'm sorry for your loss. By the time I came back from the bathroom, they had took the baby, put it in a box, and like sent it off, I guess, to do testing or whatever. And he comes in and he's like, I'm sorry. He's like, they're finished with everything. Do you want to take the baby back and do whatever you want with it? Like you can do cremation or whatever, or we can just dispose of it for you. And, I wasn't really thinking too much about it. I was just like, y'all can just keep it and do whatever you need to. And then I regretted that later. But I don't feel too bad about it now. I think like in the days after losing the baby, like I just kind of felt like I wanted to be close to it. So I regretted it then, but I kind of feel better about it now. And that's pretty much it. Like that's pretty much how it happened.
So after, that next week, that next month, the next 6 months, how did you go through your grieving and healing process? What did that look like for you?
I think it like mirrors most women. A lot of like depression and anxiety. I'm very paranoid. Like, and I still don't know where that came from. Like, I would be in my apartment sometimes and I'd be like paranoid, thinking someone's about to break in. I don't know if that's normal or not, but I eventually had to speak to a grief counselor because I was suicidal. Like, I didn't feel like I had a reason to even like be alive anymore. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I wasn't answering the phone. I was just like at home all day, like in the dark. Just and I live next door to a daycare, so that didn't help. You know, I'm listening to kids screaming all day long, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I did have to reach out to a grief counselor about like me feeling like suicidal because I didn't know what I was going to do. Um, and then like I was off of work for a week, and I feel like now I probably went back too soon. I actually had my boss like she knew everything that was going on, and like the next day after I miscarried, she asked me if I wanted to come back to work, and I told her I was like, yeah, I mean, I probably could do that, and then that night was the worst night, you know, so I definitely couldn't do it. And I ended up texting her and I was like, look, I can't come, like I'm sorry. And she's like, no, it's okay, I understand or whatever. So I still have times where I just feel like depressed, like on certain days. It used to be every fifth of the month because that's when I miscarried. I miscarried February 5th actually. So every fifth of the month used to be like extremely hard for me. But it gets better. I just have like, you know, like when you reach certain milestones, you think about like where you should be now in your pregnancy, and it's just not that anymore. Like Mother's Day and my birthday was just on the 8th, and I had plans to have a baby shower that weekend because I was supposed to have a baby in September, and you know that weekend was hard. So um, I don't know. I still have anxiety sometimes. Like sometimes it's just out of control. I'm not taking any medicine or anything for it because I just don't like the feeling of being like boggled down. So I try to do like meditation and like affirmations and things like that to keep me grounded for the most part.
So at some point, you felt inclined and ready to share your story through book form. So tell us
Mm-hmm.
what was the inspiration for sharing your story in a book and the name of the book and what the book is about.
Okay. The book is Still a Mom. It's called Still a Mom. It's about navigating life after pregnancy loss. It talks a little bit about my story and then just highlights like all of the taboo issues. A lot of people think that miscarriages are uncommon because we don't talk about them enough. And I used to be that person. I used to think that people miscarried because they were doing something wrong. Like I didn't think that it was like an issue. It could be an issue with your body. Like, I have a cousin actually that went through the same experience as me, and it's been about five or so years for her, probably a little bit more than that. And I remember a few years ago, she told me that her boyfriend at the time, who her baby was for, like she felt some type of way that he didn't tell her Happy Mother's Day on Mother's Day. And I didn't understand it at first. It took me to go through it for me to understand like where she was coming from, because I'm like, okay, why is it making her this sad, And it's like little things like that that inspired me to like write and talk about this. Actually, like I said, I haven't actually physically spoken about this. My sister knows, my cousin knows, my grandma knows. Like people know from what I've told them, but I've never actually told the exact story. And that's because it was always hard for me to talk about it without getting choked up. Every time I would go to talk about it, I'd start crying like I did earlier. So I was like, I've always been a writer. So I'm like, well, let me just write down how I feel. This wasn't supposed to be a book. But, like I say, God sometimes just has like bigger plans for you. So it just eventually turned into that because I'm like, okay, I'm telling my story. It mirrors all these other women. Let's talk about healing and other issues that plague like women who've lost babies. I've met so many women that have had like stillbirths, incompetent services, like molar pregnancies, and it's just like little things like that that just inspired me. I'm so sorry, my head's just like all over the place.
So I love that you are a writer and wanted to just write it out because that was your way. It was almost your way of healing, right? Getting it out on paper and being able to share it this way. So what's one message that you want to leave with the listeners on really how to navigate this journey after loss?
I mean, definitely like people don't understand that like grief. I explain to people all the time like grief is healthy, but it should move. Like it has to move through the stages. If you find yourself in a point where, or at a place where you just like stuck in one stage of grief, then you're not grieving healthfully. And the biggest thing is that people try to tell other people how to grieve. This is like an experience to be had. So you can't really take advice from someone who's never went through it before because you know what I mean? Like they can't tell you like how you feel. They can't relate to your experiences and your feelings and your thoughts. So it's just really important for you to just take all the time that you need to like to grieve and like to heal healthfully. That's one mistake that I made, like going back to work too soon or just letting other people tell me like, oh, you shouldn't feel like this, and or just trying to even distract myself with, because I did that for a while too. I tried to distract myself with work, and then I started screwing up at work because I was like, okay, you really need to just take your time and like feel everything, just like go through the stages. It kind of feels like you shouldn't feel bad because there are other people who can't have kids at all, or you shouldn't feel bad because there are people who have actually pushed out like a baby after full term, like a stillbirth, and you shouldn't feel bad. So, like I've had conflicting thoughts about that too, but you definitely just have to like take your time, understand that every day is not going to be a rose garden. Like you're not going to feel good every day. There's going to be some days where you don't want to talk. There's going to be some triggers. Like it was hard for me to be around kids at first. So sometimes it's still hard, but it's gotten a lot better. And then just like try to find like ways to do like self-care. I do a lot of self-care. Like one of the biggest things that I've done is like change my diet for whenever I am ready to try to have another child. Like I just want to, because I really don't know, and a lot of women don't know like what causes it, but you kind of want to put yourself in a position to where it doesn't happen again. And most of the time it doesn't. Like most women go on to have successful pregnancies, and I talk about that in the book as well. And I do, like I said, a lot of meditation to keep my mind right. And taking I'm taking more vitamins now, and just making sure I'm just taking care of myself.
I love it. And I love that you talk about self-care and really doing the wellness portion of self-care, which is, watching what you put in your body, taking vitamins. And I love that you do meditate for your anxiety. That is excellent. I think that we all have to practice mindfulness, meditation, prayer in order to help curb all of the pretty much everything that we go through as just being a Black person in America, right?
Yes, right.
I'm happy that you mentioned that. So I would love for you to let the listeners know any other tools or resources that you use. I know you mentioned having a grief counselor. Any other books or things that you use that help you navigate your grief?
Well, I did actually join I joined two Facebook groups. One is like a miscarriage group, and then the other one says like pregnancy and infant loss. And I've met a lot of women there, and a lot of them like share their experiences and ways that they cope, and different things that they did to get through their trauma. And it's like little things like that. I've done a lot of research as well, just for me, just so I can understand, like, have a better understanding of what's happening, of what's taking place. Of course, like you said, grief counselor. I always advocate for people to go to therapy. Like that's what they're there for. I definitely needed it. And I grew up like very Christian. So my grandma's a minister and my family's a Christian-based family. So one of the biggest things was that we pray, and it's nothing wrong with praying, but sometimes you need a little bit more than that. Sometimes that's not going to keep your mind, well, for me, doesn't always keep my mind where I need to be. So you may have to reach out and go to a therapist. That's always good. I mean, that's what they're there for. They're licensed, they have the knowledge, and they can just help you get through your trauma. So I haven't actually taken the time to read. There are a couple of books that I do want to read. I've been like looking on Amazon, but I still, like I said, I still get choked up sometimes. So I don't know if I'm like actually ready to just like read someone else's experience and just like be traumatized all over again. But I do eventually want to get to a spot where I can do that.
Absolutely. Yes. Take your time. It's definitely a journey, not a sprint. So I would love for you to leave the listeners with some encouraging words for those who are who have gone through a loss and are looking for how to really navigate the next steps in their journey. What encouraging words can you leave with our listeners?
Just to never give up. Like, I think that most women are capable, like I said, of conceiving again and having a successful pregnancy. Just like make sure you're taking care of your body, like not over, like drinking too much or smoking. Like you have to cut all that out. And actually also making sure like you're mentally ready, because a lot of people don't understand either. Like when you experience a loss, like it drives a wedge between you and your partner sometimes. And sometimes, he may be ready and then you may not be ready and you're not mentally on the same level. So just making sure you have those, checking in with your feelings and having those conversations with your partner, making sure y'all are both on the same page, like mentally and physically. So a lot of women, they start to feel guilt because they don't feel attractive anymore. They feel like their husbands or their partners or whatever are not attracted to them. And that's just, not the case. And that's just me talking to other women, like, and them telling me like their experiences with that. One, they may be physically ready and one may not be. I still have times where my body doesn't feel like it's supposed to, like it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Sometimes I have 2 periods a month. So, it's just like a journey, like to just get back to yourself. So just make sure you're taking all the time you need and taking care of yourself so that you can have another successful pregnancy.
Thank you for that. So where can the listeners find your book and connect with you after this episode?
The book is on Amazon. You can search it in Amazon search bar. Just type in Still a Mom. I believe it's the second one that pops up. It's Still a Mom, Navigating Life After Pregnancy Loss. I have it available on Kindle, like ebook and both paperback format. And you can connect with me. I have an Instagram. Well, my Instagram is Kell. It's my family nickname, and it's KEHL, and it's 4 Z's. And then I also have Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. Just typing in Mikell Smith. You'll know it's me because my cover photo is the book or whatever. I use Pinterest and Twitter, but I don't really use it that much. So I guess like Facebook and Instagram is like mostly where you can find me at.
Well, thank you so much, Mikell, for being on the podcast and sharing your story with us. It's been a blessing.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. For show notes, go to sistersinloss.com. To stay connected with us and join the Sisters in Loss community and receive my weekly newsletter, please go to sistersinloss.com/newsletter. That is sistersinloss.com/newsletter. Please rate and review this episode, and I will talk to you next week.